And hello again, and plugin control Holy Grail. I've spoken about this before. What's it about? Basically, what I want to be able to do is when I bring a plugin up on my door, on the screen, and when I select one or activate one, I want to have the parameters of that plugin, the parameters I'm most interested in, to hand on a bit of hardware. I don't want that bit of hardware to be somewhere else. I want it to be right in front of me. And I've looked at various controls, and as probably anyone who's seen videos before, I'm a big aficionado of the FL Key series. That's the FL Key Mini and the FL Key 37. And eagle-eyed viewers, actually no, you can't actually see it. I've got my FL Key 37 down here, and apologise, you can probably see my knees there. I'm going swimming later. I've thrown myself now. So yeah, I haven't abandoned the FL 37. That's my go-to, but I am interested in this technology, which is now defunct. And the reason I've looked at it, I guess, is because I was so impressed with what Novation have done with the FL Key series of keyboards. I thought, well, you know, what else have they done in the past? This is what I found. Very interesting, and I think potentially very useful. And I can see myself using parts of this, certainly the auto mapping, across different bits of hardware in the future. Anyway, before we go any further, what we're looking at today is the Novation Remote 25 or SL25. You see on the left hand side, because it is defunct, it's no longer supported by Novation. That's not fair to say. It's no longer developed. It is still supported. It's well supported. All the software and all the manuals are still up on the Novation site, and I don't think they're going anywhere. So still a very relevant technology if it does what you want it to. Now with these things like the user guide, this is the PDF. What I like to do is, if it's a really useful one, and I think this one's going to be really useful, I've got here the FL Key 37 manual. It's just really nice to have everything printed out. Now I'm old school, I'm an old boy, so you know, your mileage may vary on that one. What else is up on the Novation website? The auto mapping technology. There's a whole lot of information about that, supported by a lot of Novation hardware, and a lot of plugins support it just automatically, I guess. There's a great review here from Sound on Sound back in the day. Well worth a look. That's available on soundonsound.com. Well worth fishing out. Bear in mind when you read that review, it's old versions of the software. Novation have been continually reviewing the firmware and the software that goes with auto mapping and the keyboards. It's better now than this article suggests, and it was great, to be honest. If you read the article, you're going to think, oh wow, that's pretty good. What else have I got here? Oh yeah, this is just to showing you that all the downloads are still up on the Novation website. So that's the remote user guide I was looking at earlier on. This is all the software you need for Windows and Mac. I'm running on PC, obviously. So let's go into FL Studio. I thought I had it loaded, but obviously not. And let's I'm starting with a blank template. Let's load in I'm going to load in one of my favorite software synthesizers, which is the Jupiter 8 from Arturia. That's how you pronounce it. Let's detach it, just because that gives us a bit more flexibility. Isn't it funny? Oh, there it is. Do you know when you're doing a video, or when you're showing someone something, it never goes quite according to plan, and things are never quite in front of you as you'd like them to be. But I digress. Let's see how some of this works. First of all, let's look at the layout. Oh, I'll tell you what I meant to do. I'm going to start that again because I think this is worth seeing. Let me delete that and then quickly bring it back. But when I bring it back, what I'm going to do is show you what's happening on the LCDs, because that's interesting. So let's make sure you can see. This is the first set of LCDs, which is what I wanted you to see at first, and I'll pop over here. I'll load in that Jupiter 8 again, and you'll see quite quickly, actually it flashes up quite quickly that it's found the parameters for the Jupiter 8. And let's detach it again, and let's have it fill up the whole screen. Might go down a bit. Yeah. So what I've chosen to do is, if we look at the layout of the Jupiter 8, lots of knobs, which was common I guess in the early 80s. A little bit later, very few knobs, things like the JX8P and so on. Anyway, I digress again. What I've done is I've attached the knobs. I've set the knobs up to be in the same order as the knobs on the Jupiter 8, and the faders to be in the same order as the faders on the Jupiter 8. So what that means is, you can probably see you get the names of the parameters as well as the values, which is great. I think that's a real feature of these keyboards. So you can see there I'm changing. If you look on the plugin on the left, I'm changing the volume. If you look on the right, you can see the volume value and the volume name is up there. Let's go across the balance. Doing the same thing with the balance. You'll see on the left it's moving, and I'm twiddling knobs all the way through. You get the idea. Those are all the knobs. And then over here, these are the faders. And you're probably thinking, well, what happens when you run out of hardware faders? And the answer is you can flip up to another page. Now I haven't got that set up here at the moment, but I've actually reverted to a previous version, but that actually works quite well. And I've mapped all the parameters on the Jupiter 8, give or take, onto the Novation workflow. And when I select the Jupiter 8, I get the parameters. And what's nice, let's just move this down. I don't want to waste too much of your time. Let's load up something else that's supported. Let's go to Synology, and you'll notice that the supported ones have an exclamation mark and Automap next to them. That's what happens with the software when you load it. Works pretty well. Doesn't support every bit of plugin technology that you have, but supports, you know, an awful lot of useful stuff. So I don't know if you were watching, but what it's done now is it's recognized that I've got the Synology up, and it's changed the parameters, and I've now got cutoff, resonance, attack, release, vibrato, and what I've done is I've mapped, I was using a different controller. I've mapped the volume level onto a slider. More of that later. That's going to be a different video. What it does, you'll see that I've still got some parameters over here which are being changed. What Automap does is basically when you load up your plugin, it queries the plugin and says, okay, what have you got? And then it splashes them all over the work surface. Now that's great, but it's probably not quite what you want. So what you do then is you go in on the UI for the auto mapping, and let me bring that up because that's going to be interesting to see. Let me just close that for a second. Just here we go. So edit mapping, rolling cloud. Let's go into the Synology because that's there, and this is what I've done. You can see that was a mistake, wasn't it? Let me just bring it back up. Let me just bring it back up again. Interesting. Let me just put it down here. And let me just bring back. Okay. Okay, I've got you now, sucker. Okay. You've probably given up by now. I'm almost about to give up. But if you're still with me, what you can basically do is, let's just drop this down here, is these are all the parameters that you get down here in this drop down. Let me just bring that up there. And as you select, let's pick one that isn't particularly, no, we do want level, don't we? Let's pick out this one, say. You can edit it and you can go in and say, well, I want that to be the high pass filter, and that's what it's gonna change when you do this. And if I had the relevant part of the editor, and it's not going to play ball with me, but if I did, you'd see it change on the screen there. So loads of flexibility. Let me just put that back because my arm's beginning to ache, and I do apologise for showing you my knobbly knees. That's really what I wanted to cover today. I think it's a real shame that I think this technology has been on the market for quite a while. It's in some ways it's a shame that it's on its way out, but I recognise that the technology that is presently coming and is in the FL Key 37, which is based on scripting for FL Studio, it's ultimately going to be more efficient. But nevertheless, it's a shame. I'd like to have seen another generation of auto mapping, I guess. I'd like to have seen slightly more, I'm not going to say quality hardware, but certainly some of these knobs are not quite the quality I'd like to see. They're firm, but they're just a bit plasticky. I'd like to have seen perhaps a larger LCD. I love having two LCDs, and that's a fantastic feature. Everything comes up. I probably haven't demoed it quite as well as I would have liked, but hopefully you've got the gist of it. Okay, I'm starting to waffle. I'm going to call it a day there. There'll be more videos about auto mapping and Novation hardware, old hardware, as well as newer hardware. But I don't think Novation are releasing any new hardware that supports auto mapping, but some of the current hardware that's been released, I guess, over the last year or two still supports auto mapping and is pretty good. So I'm going to be looking at that as well. One quick note, this is generation 1 of the Novation SL. They did a generation 2, which was called Novation Remote 25 SL2, I think. Very, very similar keyboard, only one LCD, so they saved a bit of money there, I guess. And the way it works is, as soon as you touch one of the faders, you just get it switches to give you either the right side on the LCD or the left side on the LCD. So very similar, but I personally like having two LCDs and seeing everything. It's nice. So I probably will stick with the generation 1, but I certainly want to have a look at the generation 2 device, and I'll maybe do that in a future video if there's enough interest. Anyway, I think I've waffled enough. Thanks very much for your time. Hope you've enjoyed it. Any questions, let me know below, and I'll try and answer them as quickly as I can. If you enjoyed the video, please leave me a like. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe. Thanks for your time.